Recording in progress. There we go. Hello, everybody joining in. I'm hoping your cameras and sound are off. Because I'm in control. There we go. Right, got some people. Can you, those of you who have just joined us to listen in, could you just pop in the chat that I haven't cut anybody off like I'm used to? You guys won't know, but we had a really good presentation from a surveyor called Tim Kenny. We talk about sustainability and doing surveys, and I cut him off, and he was so good. He carried on for 20 minutes talking to himself, and nobody could get in touch with him to say, so we had to get him to do it again. Very embarrassing. Right. Can our guests, can you hear me and can you see us? Somebody put in the chat. Oh, there you go, Leslie can. Thank you, Leslie. Cool. All right then. So welcome everybody. Right, can you hear that tinging or is it me? Can you hear a ting? My I said my husband was saying what's for tea. It's because this house is so connected that the iPad is connected to Alexa, is connected to something else. So he's in work getting messages about kids, your tea's on the table. So right, there we go. Turn this off. You'll all be having pizza and chicken nuggets for tea. There we go. Righto. Cool. Right, let's get started again. So hello, everybody. Welcome to this podcast come webinar. For those of you who've just joined, if you can pop in the chat to let me know that you can hear us and you can see us. Otherwise we're in a bit of trouble. And let me know, what stage you are in your career as a surveyor and what kind of work you do, just so we've got a bit of variety. Don't be shy. And thank you to you Matrix gang. I was trying to think about, what do I call you? Are you a team, a board, a committee, or a gang? I went for gang in the end, or a gaggle. What's a group of surveyors called? There's a pub quiz question for you. But thank you for coming on, because I've been wanting to have a chat with some Matrix people for a little while to understand a bit more about what you do, because I only ever see everybody at awards when they're really hyped and everything's great and amazing, and that's good, but I never get a chance to say, what is it you actually do? Tell me more about it, because it's changed a lot since my day. So if we can just you that are on here, so we've got Richard, Sherriden, Tanisha and Brooke. If you want to unmute yourselves. You're all from the London Matrix group, is that right? Do you want to just sort of go round and do a super quick intro, where you are in your career, whether you qualified or not, the kind of work that you do? If we start with Tanisha.
Yeah, so my name's Tanisha Patel. I'm currently a graduate surveyor at Avison Young, and I'm only just really starting out on the APC journey. So I have about maybe 1.5 years worth of experience. And prior to that, I did a master's in real estate at the University of Manchester.
Okay, and how do you pronounce your name again? Did I pronounce it wrong? Because I do everybody's name wrong.
Most people do. Tanisha.
Tanisha. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And well, lovely to have you here. And sorry, what kind of work do you do at Avison Young then?
So I'm currently sitting my first and soon to be second rotation in business rates.
Okay, business rates.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much people really know about business rates, but it's kind of non-domestic tax on commercial properties. But it's really interesting. It's kind of a mix of valuations, site inspections, and kind of appealing values with the VOA, the Valuation Office Agency. So you get a range of exposure, I guess. And
I know there'll be some surveyors who will literally have switched off at the thought of valuation and business rates. But I know that there are a load as well who will just be, ooh, that sounds interesting. And that's just the variety of surveying, isn't it? So lovely to have you here. Let's go to Brooke.
Thanks, Marion. Good evening, I guess, everybody. Brooke Collins, and I work for a property development company by the name of Alma Cantor. I've worked here for 6.5 years now, so straight out of university, working for the company. My role to date is broad, actually. So it's the full kind of plethora of development. So through from kind of reviewing opportunities, underwriting them via development appraisals, working out whether or not they're viable, all the way through from planning, construction, and then subsequently disposal of an asset. Obviously, there's a long life cycle of development, so not all of them have gone through that. But that's a kind of really unique and interesting part of development that I like. I have been on the Matrix for a few years now, and sitting this year, I'm relationships manager, which I'm sure we'll go into more detail later on. I feel very passionate about the APC, the Matrix, the RICS in particular, so much so, and I bore all my friends with it that I'm an APC assessor, which again, I'm sure we'll touch upon later. So hopefully that gives you a good little flavour of who I am.
Lovely. And you just reminded me, a couple of years, it was a good few couple of years ago now, because obviously we've had a pandemic that just takes loads of years out. I went away for a weekend with some of my women in surveying girly friends, and we did a Secret Santa, and one of them wrapped up the present. I think they were coasters with presidents, the RICS presidents' names on it. It was wrapped up in a Modus magazine. And that's why we were gutted it went out of print. But that passion, totally get it. Lovely. And Sherriden.
Thank you, Marion. Hi, everyone. So my name is Sherriden Rastegar, and I'm a Senior Sustainability Manager at JLL. I qualified on the commercial pathway back in 2021 and then stumbled into the world of sustainability. So I currently work in the property and asset management team for sustainability. So it's very focused on the operational side of an asset, but also looking at sustainability and initiatives at portfolio level as well. So predominantly our clients are investors. And I also, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, that sounds really serious. It's really like a proper job.
It's not serious. It's not serious. Very good. Good job. And I guess also to note for our RICS Matrix, I joined the committee back in August, and I lead on all things sustainability related.
Very good. And obviously sustainability is a huge area of growth at the moment. And in the last year, I've seen lots of people I've known over the years, job titles changed to, and yes, sustainability included. So lots of things happening. And then we've got Richard. Hello, Richard.
Yes, hello. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And thank you, Marion, for having us along. My name is Richard Golding. I am a surveyor down the commercial route for Associate RICS, actually sort of around about the same time as you, Sherry. I didn't realise that. I currently work for Gleeds, focusing on marketing and business development for the London region, but get quite heavily involved in commercial too within this role. And one of the things I love about working for Gleeds is being able to get involved in various different service lines. So commercial background, but has a massive passion for all different pathways of surveying. I'm also currently the chair on the RICS Matrics London Committee, Collective, Gang, Gaggle, whatever word you choose to use, Marion. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell, I suppose.
Oh, well, you all sound very professional, and I feel wholly inadequate chatting to you about what I get up to in my spare room. We've got a mix of people listening in because we've got recording this as a webinar and as a podcast, and we've got a range of people who are just starting out in their career, but also further longer in the tooth, shall we say. For anybody who is listening in or has joined us live on the webinar, we do have a earlier session that we recorded a month or so ago. If you look on the website lovesurveying.com/the Surveyor Hub, I think that's what it is, you'll find there's a webinar there about getting to MRICS, and it'll give you a bit of an overview, and we can signpost you to lots of different resources. I don't propose ever to reinvent the wheel, but sometimes we can't always find what we need to. When I first came across, so I qualified in 2004. I felt I was quite isolated in getting qualified, and that's because at that time they'd brought out the Tech RICS, which is now the associate route, and I was one of the few in my company who had just enough experience to get through to a member and to go through the APC. And back in the day, it was called JO, Junior Organisation, and I worked in Croydon at the time, sort of in a suburb, could have been anywhere in the country really. And I did go to a couple of events, some CPD events. And I remember feeling quite uncomfortable because I turned up looking a right mess because I'd been out on a day looking looking at properties and inspections. And everyone was very nice, but it did sort of feel quite awkward. So I didn't really engage that much. And we're also, dare I say it, 2003, 2004, that's like before internet proper took off, which makes me feel ancient saying that. But the Opportunity Connect just wasn't the same as it is now. And in 2003, the name changed from the JO Junior Organisation to Matrix, or the Matrix, RICS Matrix, however you say it. And I don't know why that was. Maybe somebody might message in and let us know why that was. I get the whole rebrand, but at that point I sort of switched off, and I think that was because I just qualified. We didn't have the the online communities, my RICS communities and LinkedIn and all of those things, and I just sort of carried on with my job. And then from doing this podcast, I've got to know, or I seem to have a few younger followers, and I love it because you're all so enthusiastic and driven, and even if you don't know quite where you want to be, you've got that fizz, that enthusiasm that I remember when I was that young. And so I'm always keen, and even though I don't work with with newly qualified surveyors, I'm always keen to hang about. God, I sound really bad, don't I? Like I've got a problem. I want to hang around with the younger ones. So it's interesting to see how much has changed over the years, and I'm sure many people listening to the podcast or the webinar might feel the same. How did you first come across Matrix? Was it at university? Was it through your employer? How did you first come across it, if you remember?
I'm happy to go first. I think because of being at Alma Cantor, and I was the first graduate as such, everything was kind of a collaborative approach with myself and the company. So as you've just identified there, Marion, kind of once you qualify, I guess from my own personal perspective, it was like, okay, and now what? I've got the qualification, but actually, how do I apply that? How do I actually use all of that hard work and the hours and everything that went into the qualification to then kind of one, give back, but two, keep kind of broadening that knowledge and skill set. So again, kind of touching upon what you were mentioning there, mine was very much kind of looking on LinkedIn, following kind of other people, attending events, and then just kind of through, I guess, that natural progression, finding out about the Matrix and then thinking, well, that's definitely something that I want to be a part of. And actually, what does that mean? And I guess the key understanding that I took away from speaking with a few people and going to the events was very much trying to kind of focus the energy and effort towards those that are actually in the surveying field at the moment, but also those that aren't and actually don't understand the different kind of avenues and pathways that you can actually get into. Even from myself, and I can go on a massive tangent, but kind of at school saying, oh, I'm going to study real estate, and no one really knew what that was. And you think kind of construction is hard hats and high vis, but actually there's such a range of different kind of avenues that you can go through. But yeah, mine was through kind of wanting to give back, wanting to kind of not let the qualification fall by the wayside. Great, I've done it, but now what? And really kind of keep building upon networks and skills, really.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I would definitely echo everything Brooke said. And I think, when you're a graduate and you're going through that structured training and you're working towards your APC and you have that structure, as soon as you qualify, there's almost a gap there. Okay, what do I do next? So, you know, having that network to bounce different ideas off, also see different opportunities, different avenues people have gone through is, you know, really beneficial. Well, I found it really beneficial anyway. And I think from my angle, I qualified and I, you know, moved into sustainability as well. And it was, you know, how can I connect the two? Because I still really like that surveying background, but obviously sustainability is moving forward too. So it presented an opportunity there. And I think it's a really good network.
I almost imagine, I mean, when I remember doing my APC, I studied every weekend, every evening. You know, it was the best and worst thing I've ever done in my life, but so proud to get through. But it did feel like, you know, those fancy wheels you get that have like the spinners inside, and you're qualified, but your brain and everything else is then still going. And you know, for some people, I guess you qualify and then the reality of the job hits, and you know, you might feel a bit deflated, or you might feel a bit, you know, that that come down, if you like, of studying and education and all of those things. And so I think it is important to continue that, and also to give back, because you're closer to it than any of us are, sort of further down the line. And so you've got that recent experience of, you know, so for example, now I think you know, APC interviews are online rather than in person, you know, and very few of us oldies will have experienced that, you know. So being able to connect in and offer support in that way. And just on that point, Lionheart offers great support, doesn't it, for APC candidates, and they do a session where you can practice your presentation. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes too. So tell me more about how you come together as Matrix. So you've got, I know there's a Matrix board at the top, and then you've got regions. How many regions are there, or do they move and shift and change over the years? Richard?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I think during lockdown, there was obviously a bit of a pause on all of this, and it was a really good opportunity to try and breathe some new life into the Matrix network. Kirsty White, who is the sort of Matrix engagement lead for the Matrix overall, has done a fantastic job of sort of driving this forwards. But as you mentioned, you've got sort of like the UK and Ireland board sort of overarching at the moment. That there are pockets of international Matrix committees, which I think are sort of looking to evolve over the next couple of months. But within the UK, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, North East, North West, South West, South East, London, East Midlands, pretty much sort of all across the UK, which is great. And within those regions, London only has one committee, but others like West Midlands could have 2 or 3 in there as well, which is quite good. Great. So
great. So just on the screen here, for those who are listening and can't see it, we've got like an overview of who's who. So how does well, my first question, well, one of the most important questions, and the questions I always get asked, is how do you get in touch with anybody from Matrix? Is there a go-to one point of contact? You know, so when I'm doing my TikToks and whatnot, you know, I get messaged by people who are graduates or, you know, different stages of their career. Where do I signpost people to? Or is it a case of seeing where they are in the country, picking out a name and trying to connect them?
I mean, I think there are probably a few different avenues, but I think if somebody knows kind of where it is that they're going to be working, or somewhere that's more accessible for them, it can either be through kind of LinkedIn. I think the majority of us on LinkedIn have got the fact that we're part of the Matrix, As far as I'm aware, there's also a kind of summary on the RICS pages as well with regards to the individual members, and there should be contact details for it. But I think the key point is, if you're getting in touch with someone and you're not sure if they're the right person, everybody's willing to help and very much encourages people to reach out and get in contact. So if they're not getting in contact with the specific person that is relevant to them, they will ensure that the information is passed on to the right person. And I think from our perspective, and I speak for everyone, that the more people that join, the better for us. So that's the sole purpose and foundation of it, to make people aware and for them to join in.
And that's it. There's usually somebody who knows somebody who can point them in the right direction, and that's what you're all in it for. So I get that, because I see you all over LinkedIn with your different events and things that you're doing, and as we record this now, I think there's a is it £5 5k challenge for Lionheart, so making everybody go out and do 5k and donating money to raise awareness for Lionheart and Matrix. So I see all the fun, active stuff that you do, but what does each of your board do? Do you get between you to say, okay, what's our objectives, what we're here for, who are we going to help? Is every board and region and committee different? How does that come together? How do you organise yourselves?
I think each, and again, I'm sure Richard will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think each of the different regions have got different priorities. But what underpins it all is being inclusive, spreading awareness, raising money for Lionheart where possible. And so, kind of speaking from our own experience on the London board, it helps that we've got a fantastic kind of team that all want to get involved and are really excited about the different events. We very much in our calendar try to diversify the events, so a combination of kind of networking, so no kind of key objective other than for people to meet and greet. We've also then got structured training sessions, so around mock interviews or understanding more specifically about the APC element. We've then got more kind of charitable angles, whereby the sole focus is obviously raising money for Lionheart, and then more kind of educational pieces, so doing kind of building study tours or going to new sites, understanding what's there, and really trying to kind of tie in and pull upon all of the different skills, avenues, pathways for people to get more of an insight that they otherwise wouldn't get.
And you're aimed at the younger surveyor, and these days you've got to be so careful as to what is young and not, because I feel young, but Matrix has traditionally been for under 35, and I know the Young Surveyor of the Year as it stands now is for people who are under 35, but I think it's meant to be 10 years post qualification as a rough rule. But I would say anybody who needs that support at whatever stage should be able to reach out. So although you will be looking to attract the younger people, I think there's a lot of benefit and merit for more mature people, if I put it that way, so careful with the language, or more experienced surveyors rather, to get involved and to see, because I see it certainly in the hub, where I get people joining or listening to the podcast because their graduate has heard the podcast, and some of them can't work iTunes and the podcast and Facebook and internet and all of those things. So there's a lot I think that can happen in terms of reverse mentoring, almost, showing different people the way and what's accessible. Do you engage with other surveyors who are sort of further on in their career, or is it just more companies and newly qualified?
I think precisely that, Marion. We need that, in some of our, and definitely in some near future events, we really rely on experienced members, because we know we have a lot to learn and we can be early on in our careers. So, we do have a mentoring event coming up actually at the end of this month, and then we're looking to, particularly with the sustainability angle of it, looking to get some experienced members in to speak about their sustainability careers to date, because it is very much, we have a lot to learn and vice versa. So definitely future events are in the pipeline, and that's something we're really looking to roll out across the year.
I think that cognitive diversity throughout the whole of the work, the profession and the work we do is so, so important, because you can challenge us with your newfangled ways and thinking, whereas we can let you know, well, actually, we tried that in 2003 and it didn't work, you know, or this is how things have moved on. But we've got to be having that conversation. I think it's so, so important given the work that we do. You
mentioned earlier, Marion, about sort of this shift away from the sort of 35 or under to sort of 10 years post-chartership. And I think pretty much all of our events are completely open and inclusive. And we have seen more and more people of all ages turn up. And this could be people that have left the industry and they have moved into a later part of their life. Or they've been in the surveying industry and haven't really looked to get qualified, and suddenly it's now higher on their agenda. So they're actually going through the process, and they're looking for support, just like everyone else. So it's really good to have those different perspectives, but also influencing different ways of thinking into it all, which is quite nice, actually.
And for all of you, is this your first board experience, if I can put it that way, of being on a board or a committee? Or have you done it before? You're all nodding, so it's like your first step up. I think this is really important, because for a lot of surveyors, you know, you all sort of, I think you're working corporates or bigger firms, you might have more access to it. But for a lot of surveyors who are out doing the job on the tools, they don't have management training. They don't know or have never been shown what happens in a committee or a board meeting unless they get, you know, volunteer experience somewhere. My first experience on a board was as a school governor, and that's because they were quite desperate. I did like the worst pitch I think ever, something about baking cakes, which I don't, but I got on, and it got me that first step and that confidence to be able to handle myself and to learn in a meeting. And so I think for anybody who is you know, thinking about their longer term career, getting involved in something like this is really important to have on your CV, and to learn and how to work together, particularly if your job doesn't involve that on a day-to-day basis. We mentioned,
sorry, Marion,
sorry, go on, Brooke.
You just make a really good point there, actually, and one that we've implemented over the last couple of months, just on that kind of, you know, board input and how you yourself can kind of gain experience and exposure. And actually, a piece of feedback that I believe Richard had received is, okay, rather than you, Richard, the chairman, and Luke Hamilton, the vice chair of the Matrix, is there an opportunity for other people to start setting up the agenda, start liaising with the RICS for our meeting rooms, subsequently taking minutes, because it may be exactly as you've identified there, that some people don't do that in their day-to-day role. And actually, I think everyone's taken really well to it, because again, if you want to do that and it's an opportunity that you would like to have, taking minutes, etc., then you can. But equally, if it isn't something that you want to do because you do it day in, day out, and you just quite like being part of the committee because something else aligns with your interest, then you can too. So I think that is a really important point that you mentioned there.
And one of my best experiences was actually being on a shadow board to a main board of directors and understanding what they did, and you know, everything that you're doing. You know, I see, you know, all of you members and the regional people as the future governing council at some stage, you know, or boards, whatever's at the top of the tree at the time when you get there. But that's how you get through. Tell me a bit more about the London region. How many members do you have? How many people are on your board, and how do you start to pull that strategy and plan together? And Sherriden, I know you've got to nip off, so just give us a wave whenever you need to. That's fine.
So I guess at the moment the committee itself is made up of 12 people, and we've kind of capped that as an easy group of people to work together with. And you can see that we've got around the outside, we've got what we're calling the cornerstones. So this is an opportunity for some of the senior members of the committee to be able to own a particular part of the business plan. So we've got Brooke at relationships, Sherry for sustainability, And then we've got Belle and Jordan for knowledge and development, respectively.
So what's interesting for those listening on the podcast, so you're just showing a screen, a slide, and it's got all of your board members on there. And what it's not is a hierarchy. A typical chart, with a organizational chart, who's at the top, who's number 2, and then everybody else. You've arranged it as in everybody's on a page, but you've got these 4 foundational cornerstones, as you mentioned, of your strategy, I guess, of what's important to you as a group. How did you come up with that?
I think the idea of a flat hierarchy is important, and it's not about certain people telling others what to do. And even this idea of having a buddy system means that Brooke can help elevate Hannah and vice versa in certain fields. And it might not even necessarily be within their particular sort of area of interest. If we look at Tanisha here, she's sort of picked up the baton of early engagement, but much like everyone else, we get involved in APC events or the networking, or even with the speed mentoring event that we've got coming up this month. In some way, shape or form, everyone has influenced that event, which is quite nice. It's probably important to say on this that the definition of the committee as 12 people, it doesn't stop there. There's the champions that want to help out with the events, or they're coming constantly day in, day out. They're offering to help set up, whatever. But there's also just the people that come along. So if you think about the RICS Matrix London as a whole, I mean, we estimate that we've probably engaged with around 800 surveyors in the last 6 months, whether that's people reaching out to us on LinkedIn, coming to an event, or just any kind of communication on things like Yammer or the My RICS community too.
And what's interesting about not having a typical organogram and hierarchy, because I think this is interesting for lots of members to think about how their businesses are run and how the RICS is run ultimately, is that when people know their place and we've got a job description, we all feel very certain, and we can blame each other for when things go wrong or push it up the tree. What's interesting about having more of a flat type of structure is that it's really important that you empower people. So yes, certain people might have certain responsibilities, but you've got to empower people to be able to do the job. So just like Tanisha, if she's looking at early engagement, then she's got to be empowered to be able to do that and to know what to do and how to do it. So rather than being very prescribed, this is leaving it up to you guys to create it how you want, which is I think it'll be quite different for many surveyors or many organizations, because I won't have come across that. How do you make sure everybody knows what they're doing? Or is it like the worst WhatsApp group ever?
I was just about to say, we've got so many different platforms. We've got WhatsApp groups, we've got our monthly meetings, we've got a kind of calendar, so a bespoke calendar for all of the events, and there's kind of a chat function on it as well. And then we've also got our monthly meetings, but obviously there's an opportunity between any of them whereby you can kind of liaise, ask any questions or queries. And I think the key element is, because we are, I would like to say, quite organised with regards to our events kind of in the pipeline, that's when we're having those meetings, there is an opportunity to say who would like to put themselves forward for it, and then you kind of break out in mini categories. And if people aren't sure about what they're doing within that mini category, again, they just kind of come into the wider fold to ask questions and bounce off ideas. And I think the key thing here is that there isn't a right or wrong. I think the key thing is making everyone kind of feel that they can do different things, experience different roles, hold different events, whilst raising as much money for Lionheart as possible, really.
And that sounds quite liberating, I think, compared to some of the other regional groups that we have, where we've got to wait for permission, or we feel we've got to wait for permission to do different things. You just seem to go out and get on with it. Can I ask you about these cornerstones? So how did that come about? Did you come up with them together? Was it something that was prescribed or talked about by RICS? And tell me a bit more about them, because I think that's interesting.
Who wants to take that one?
Sorry, I realised that I got ahead of myself. Very excited that we'd moved on from
That's
the
all right,
cornerstones and everyone's roles.
That's the kind of curveball that you'll get from me, Brooke.
Well, I'm sorry, everyone that's watching live. I can't share my screen. I seem to not be able to do two things at once. But I think the cornerstones have come from at the beginning of the year, sitting down to say, okay, well, what is the objective? What is it that we're trying to achieve? And really kind of from brainstorming, you know, going a bit of the old school method, pen and paper, A3 sheet, working out what the objectives were, and then almost kind of working it back to say, well, what are the individual elements here that are kind of the key factors? And really the kind of sustainability is key. Relationships, obviously, we need to ensure that we're kind of engaging. That's one of the key elements. Communications and education. So really all of it was kind of thinking, what is it we want to achieve, taking a step back as to how we were to achieve it, and then literally creating those cornerstones to feed in. Rich, do you have any input on that? It was your brainchild.
Anyone that knows Brooke will know that networking and relationships is a perfect cornerstone for Brooke. And I think the same goes for Sherriden.
She hasn't stopped talking since she's been on this podcast.
I think everyone, not only in the cornerstones, but just everyone's roles are really quite fitting. I mean, Tanisha, how do you feel with your role as sort of within early engagement? Do you feel liberated with it?
I definitely think it suits me, you know, being at the stage in my career that I am at, you know, not really years in, but I think I'm able to give you that kind of point of view as to where, you know, people that are coming in, how do we engage those kind of people? I mean, in my company, not many people knew about RICS Matrix, and I think I even connected on LinkedIn with you, Richard, and so you told me about RICS Matrix. I didn't really have kind of an idea beforehand, and so I think, yeah, it's important that we raise awareness of what we do, and so that more people can engage with us.
I think that's really important, and I think that's where RICS really needs to help, is that there should be that, you know, at least one point of contact so that everybody understands what it is, so that, because it shouldn't be so hard, you know. From a customer experience point of view, the kind of work I used to do, we talk about customer ease. How easy is it to do business with you? How easy is it to find you and to know what you, you know, to find what different kinds of information that you need, and the fact that you're organising these things and being visible. And a lot of surveyors do not like to be visible. You know, there's a lot of surveyors who are not on LinkedIn or any kind of social media, and that's fine. But in an age where we're not all getting together and going down the pub or the community centre for whatever, you know, we've got to at least be visible so that people can reach out, or we can reach out to others. So with these different cornerstones, then, is it that you've got events around those different themes? Are you connecting with different businesses? Is that then how you can demonstrate you know, what you've been doing as a board and what you've achieved?
Yeah, I mean, this really does feed into sort of our business plan, and I think if we're talking about inclusivity, maybe sort of the Matrix of old could have been seen as a bit of a drinking club or very informal meetups. We're very conscious.
I think if it had been known as I think it would have been known as a drinking club, it wouldn't have slipped off my radar. Perhaps back in the day. But you know, I guess though, actually, you know, any kind of organization, group like that will evolve with the time. You know, the group you are now and what people need now is very different to what I needed and what others needed 20 plus years ago, and it has to keep evolving.
And I think it's very important that we still have those networking events, whether it is an evening drinks reception or a breakfast or sort of peer-to-peer mentoring. One of the really popular things that we've been doing of late, I'd say, is probably the study tours. So Brooke and I very kindly sponsored by Make Architects, had a look at 22 rope makers in the city. And just sort of the feedback was that for people from different pathways to have exposure to a construction site, they might not be on sort of QS or construction pathway or development, but it was just sort of exploring all of the different areas. And even on our committee, I'd say that there's quite a few people that have chartered in commercial or building surveying, and then have moved into different pathways, because I think London, more than anywhere, there's such a wealth of opportunity for that sort of lateral movements within surveying.
I think where you start out your career is very different to where you end up, and so the more exposure you get to different types of surveying, you know, early on, where you can make those connections, will really stand you in good stead. What's the word? Stand you in good stead. You're in London, so you've got better connections than most of us. Most of you, I take it, would work centrally. It's not the same further out, is it? Where if you're not in a city or you're in a more rural part of the country, and that makes connection very hard, you know, to find what you need. Do you know how the other regions or committees tackle it, or do you even experience that in the London region? I say that, but
are you talking more with regards to actually travel, or are you talking about the kind of
because it's all right saying that, you know, and this is, you know, we talk about inclusivity and getting to events, and they're always hard, either because of timing, is it something that you want to go to, and actually affordability too, because you know, not just newly qualified, but a lot of surveyors don't earn stacks of cash, and time away at events is time away off fee earning, and some companies don't let you, and you can't afford it, and those things. So there's all got to be context, but if you're closer, if there's an event in the same town that you're working in, you're more likely to be able to, you know, to pop along. But do the other regions have challenges like that, or do you experience anything in particular in your region?
I don't know personally on the other regions. I know from our perspective, I don't think that has been the issue to date that we've been made aware of. I'm sure there may be consideration in the background where somebody would like to attend, excuse me, talking too much, but haven't been able to. But I think from the kind of cost perspective angle, we very much try to ensure that our events, where possible, are either fully sponsored or subsidised, such that there isn't that element of somebody wants to attend, but there is a financial constraint that doesn't allow them to do so. And that's something, you know, as part of my role, very much ensuring that we're kind of reaching further afield with sponsors and things, obviously the right sponsor being appropriate for the different events that we hold. And actually, when we look back at kind of the events that we've done to date, they've kind of been all over London on different kind of locations. They're never just kind of repeating the same areas. So hopefully that then allows an opportunity for people that otherwise wouldn't be able to go to maybe go. But I think that's a good point to raise. And I'd be curious myself to find out how the regions overcome that actually.
I know that the likes of Birmingham and Oxford, Newcastle, Manchester are very with hives of activity. There are others which probably not so much, but I suppose it's about adjusting the frequency of events. We're very fortunate in London that we can probably do sort of 2 to 4 a month quite easily. That might not necessarily be the case on some others. But also traveling to others, I think, is important, rather than being in a silo of London and Oxford and Birmingham, that we're trying to sort of help support other people's events, get more involved. But I know Tanisha, you've said in the past that sometimes, you know, if it's a breakfast morning event and it doesn't finish until 9:30, it is quite a big thing of like you've just started out in your career. What's your line manager going to think about sort of turning up half an hour late? What's your thoughts on that, team?
I think it's exactly as you said, you know, when you're kind of at the beginning of your career and you're, say, a graduate, you know, taking that time out, and I know people appreciate, your line managers will appreciate it, it's for networking and it does help you in your career, but sometimes they don't instantly see it that way. And so yeah, it's tough, but I think we are trying to do kind of more events that might start a bit later or maybe start earlier, so it's quite a bit before in the morning. And I think we just have to be more kind of variable in kind of the events we do and the timings.
And I think the other side of it is, if there isn't an event for you, then go and suggest it. You know, where I live, I'm right on the edge of the East Midlands region, and nothing comes my way. It's always a 2-hour drive from where I am, and I could or should just say, can I put an event on in Milton Keynes? You know, and get involved. So on the one hand, we can moan about it all, but then equally, we've got to be coming up with suggestions and seeing what we can do. I'm keen to just have a chat about employers and how employers and the more mature, more experienced surveyors can get involved. So you talked about sponsorship, and I guess that's what their name printed over an event. But what other ways would it help you as Matrix members and younger surveyors to have more experienced surveyors getting involved in what you do?
Rich, do you want to go for fear of me talking too much?
No, well, unless you want, I think this is a great point for you, Brooke. But happy to come.
In that case, say no more. So I think, you know, from our perspective, we've touched upon a few elements. So the first one that springs to mind is the sponsorship angle, because obviously events cost money. So wherever we can, ensuring that a company is a right fit depending on what the event is. But I think on the flip side, we touched upon at the beginning, kind of having industry professionals whereby we're holding a particular event, or we ourselves are trying to kind of broaden skill sets or knowledge by kind of having teach-ins and things, to be able to lean in and kind of reach out to get additional support on areas that we may either kind of lack in terms of our team, or just wanting to kind of loop back round and actually just get comfort that what it is that we're saying is correct. And I guess that does kind of play into the relationship angle. So whether or not it's kind of, you know, the individuals at the companies that are on the board going to colleagues and saying, would you be willing to get involved? Or equally, you know, kind of the old school method, looking on LinkedIn, or, you know, people that attend our own events and saying, we'd love to get in touch with you, and kind of doing the old school thing of picking up the phone or arranging a coffee, I think is always the best way, kind of rather than just sending the email and in the hope that they kind of respond. And I think, you know, it's never going to be an 100% hit rate whereby you're reaching out to somebody for help and support. But I'd like to say that actually on kind of all of the occasions whereby we as the London committee, I'd say the majority, kind of 99% of the time, whether or not it's somebody that's got a direct or indirect relationship with the RICS Matrix, people are willing to help. And again, to the point we're saying, if it isn't, you know, that person directly, I'm sure they'll point you in the right direction of somebody that will.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, you know, so I've just written down sponsorship, you know, getting to know your local connections. So as surveyors, we need to know who's on our regional board, but also who is on the Matrix local group. So if you do get an inquiry, you can signpost them to someone else, or vice versa. Delivering skills, CPD, you know, sharing knowledge, projects that you've been involved in. You know, there's some really interesting stuff that people do. And the other thing that comes to mind for surveyors who are qualified, run businesses or work in businesses, is they're always struggling with recruitment, finding the right people. I don't know how many job adverts I see on LinkedIn and various places that are the most boring thing ever. You know, it's, do you want to work here for this much money, these many hours a week? Whereas actually, if employers got or businesses like that got more involved and understood who was about, it's all about the connections that you make, you know, and jobs and roles can be created or used fit to suit, you know, who's there. Not all jobs need to be advertised. And so if someone's really struggling with recruitment, they need to be engaging with Matrix and the other activities that are going on, not in a hard sell and trying to recruit, but in a genuine, you know, marketing their business almost. This is what we do. This is what we're about. We're approachable. And I think also sharing their values as a business, because that's really important. The fact that you as a group have put together you know, a plan and a strategy of what's important to you, and it's not hierarchical. It says a lot about the future leaders that we have, and the way that you will want to work in the future. And values and sustainability and all of those things are a really key part to it. So, you know, there's, you know, I mentioned that reverse mentoring piece early on. Well, I think employers and more mature surveyors can learn a lot from, you know, the newfangled ideas, as I mentioned. You know, it's a great opportunity.
I think there's a big part of advocacy within firms that it's like saying, we encourage you to be going out and getting involved with the RICS Matrix, or sort of the young rail professionals, or the CIOB, all of these other sort of next gen committees which are in play at the moment, because it is mutually beneficial. And I think that if companies are smart about it, as you say, it's a good opportunity to test the water, gauge what the next generation are looking for in their sort of next job or the career path that they want to take. And I think both firms and the RICS will be seeing over the next sort of 2 to 3 years that, and we've seen with Sherry as well, that it's not just a surveyor, but we're going into sustainability and programming and all these newfangled ways, which still are sort of essentially surveying at the heart of it, but will need to evolve and grow. And I think that piece of evolving and growing together is quite important.
Can I ask, do you have much involvement with your regional RICS group? Is it the London group or the East group? Do you have much interaction with the regions? Do any of you sit on their board or anything like that?
No, so Nicola Forrest is our sort of regional chair for London. I think LinkedIn really does help with having sort of feeling a lot more connected with the other chairs and the other regions. And every year the chair, there's, I think it's called the Chair's Welcome or something like that, it was an opportunity for all the chairs to get together and meet each other. But it's almost sort of trying to figure out what that next level down is, where you sort of break the barriers and make people feel comfortable to speak sort of committee to committee.
I think that's got to be vital, that, you know, that you're all talking to each other and understanding. I mean, even from a simple point of view, if you're not clashing on dates for your bowling nights or whatever it is, you know, there's that coordination, but it is about relationship building. And, you know, maybe that's something to think about. Could your regional board act as a shadow board, you know, and things that you can learn from each other. We just got a note in the chat here from Ben, who's over in Norfolk, and was quite interested in the organogram that you put together and sharing that. Just saying, getting involved in education, qualification routes, that's important for you, but it's also important for other surveyors, because if I want to hire somebody, it's like, where on earth do I begin with the APC? Oh, no, I won't. I will employ somebody who's fully qualified. You know, missing an opportunity to find the right person. So I think it's important to that we look at it in both ways. And, you know, we have to accept, you know, we've been through a global pandemic and everything else that's been going on with the RICS, and these are steps that we take forward, and we have to keep on tuning in and listening to what we're hearing, what people want and need. Because what works for, like you said, what works in your region might not work in somewhere else, but you've still got to be sharing, you know, what goes on. Is there anybody in the chat who would like to ask any particular questions about Matrix and London? Just give it a minute just to see if anybody. If you have, I will unmute you. So everyone types right really quickly and thinks they doesn't or not. Is there anything? So what's coming up in terms of your plan going forward? So you've got your plan, you've got your different areas that you're working on, your relationship, sustainability, all of those different things. What help do you need? We talked about employers, we talked about people, you know, getting involved, sponsorship. What other help do you need?
Am I unmuted? I am. So I think hopefully you can all see on screen. For those on the podcast, apologies, you won't be able to, but I'm just sharing on screen kind of what we've done to date in the first kind of 2 months of this year. Which gives kind of a good display of where we are and what we're doing and kind of what we intend going forwards as well. I'd say the key elements, particularly from my perspective for events that we've got going forward, is if there are any companies that kind of want to sponsor events, if it aligns with their kind of objectives and things, but also attendees. So if people want to come and attend or want to get involved, we're more than welcome for kind of different people to get involved, ask questions, queries, etc. So you can see here there's a range of kind of networking, there's a understanding the Building Safety Act, which is becoming more and more important. There's a sustainability event, there's a kind of construction building tour, which is always really useful, albeit in some particular occasions there are kind of number restrictions, particularly on kind of building tours and things. But I'd say in terms of support, it's just getting people to kind of be enthusiastic and excited about these events and attend them, really.
So there's an element of promoting it, organising the event. We've had a question pop up. How much, I mean, you cover a wide range of, because you're all from different backgrounds doing different things. How much residential surveying do you have? Surveyors out doing home buyers, building surveys, that kind of thing. Do you have much engagement on that front?
So David Kelly on the committee is trained up as a building surveyor. He's currently focusing on fire engineering. We have Elliot Carty, who works for Homes England. And I believe that Luke Hamilton-Jones, who's currently working as an asset manager for Cadogan in Chelsea, he qualified as a building surveyor and focuses quite significantly on, you know, sort of dilapidations, asset management, a little bit of dispute claims on there as well.
I guess this is where, if you don't see, you know, we can either look and say, well, that's not for me, it hasn't got any resi surveyors values on there. If you don't see it, you get involved and you make sure it's put on there, and you say to your boss or to somebody else that you know, can they get involved? I think it's too easy sometimes to take a step back and say, no, that's not for me. But really, we've got to start stepping up and saying, how can we make this happen for me? So if we don't, it just doesn't. It just doesn't at all. And you know, we can't tick every single box to meet every single thing, but at least there'll be something if we raise our hand.
Well, we've had a similar instance recently in our last meeting where I suppose there's a little bit of bias towards construction in QS with Gleeds' involvement, and Ola sort of said, why are we not doing more for valuations for residential or for commercial? And it's quite nice to think that we're in an environment, our committee is in an environment where we can stand up and question things like this, and take a sort of couple of steps back and tweak the programme going forwards, just to make sure it's as accessible and of interest to as many people as possible.
But equally, you can't be everything to everyone, you know, and we do have the RIDE at RICS, we do have other organisations, and that's where that signposting is really important. You know, it's knowing what you can do well with the resources that you've got and the people that you've got, until such time the dynamics change. You know, it's and having that, being able to be flexible like that. We'll just sort of finish off now. I think it's been really, for me, it's been really useful just to see the kind of things you've done, the kind of thing that you get organised with. It's quite refreshing to know that you're just not all out on the lash having a drink and going bowling. There is some logic and things behind it. But also what I'm really impressed by is how you've come together as a group to organise yourselves in an inclusive way, to help other people, but also helping yourselves at the same time in your career, the skills that you're picking up. This is the first time you've done a webinar / podcast with you know, with somebody like me, everything that you do is building on your career. And I think a lot of people should start to take advantage of that and the opportunities that are available. I think the more support that you get, you know, where you have the most support is where you get the most success in life and business. And so the more that I think the regional groups certainly can look in, can help, can signpost and support you as younger members would certainly help. And I think there has to be, you know, can I register here to find out more? And that's one of the questions that we've had. How is there a mailing list? How do I join? And if we can't make it easy for people to do that, and I understand all the challenges that RICS has and GDPR and all of those things, but the best place would seem to be to go on LinkedIn and to search who's a Matrix member in your area, or just to post and ask. And that's where we'll connect you until such time we can organise a list. You're on mute, Richard.
Oh, that was going to happen sooner or later. I'd say, yeah, LinkedIn for sure, but also the MRICS committee. It's still sort of getting there in terms of engagement, but I think that will become.
Oh, the My RICS community platform,
Yeah.
the RICS platform, yeah.
Yeah. So Ola is looking into how we can sort of leverage that more, and there's really quite a good amount of support that we can get from it. Once you like the Matrix London page, if we publish an event, you will get a push notification.
Is that on My RICS or is that on LinkedIn?
That's on My RICS.
RICS, yeah.
Well, that's a bit of a mouthful to say when you say.
And you know, we've obviously got the Surveyor Hub community. I know it's on Facebook and not everybody likes that, but you can always share your events on there. We have a monthly notice board on there. You know, if you're happy to, you know, we share the details of this this recording, however it pans out, and people can connect with you and find the details that they need. But thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Cool. All right, I'll cut it there. Don't think anyone's got any other questions, so I think we will cut it. So thank you very much. I will get this poodled off and tweaked and let you know when it's up. But anything, if you want to, up to you, if you want to send me slides or a couple of the screenshots, I can put them in like a Google Doc so that people can just view them rather than download them. I'll try and link them in some way, because I think that'll be useful for some people to see what you've got and what you've been working on.
Perfect.
So yeah. Cool. And if I can help in any way, you know where I am. Okay.
Thanks, Marion.
Thank you.
Take
Marion.
care.
Thank you for your
Bye-bye.
time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.